Today on The State of Us, voters dread the 2024 election, and the GOP is changing its big business tactics. According to the Wall Street Journal, polling now suggests that a substantial majority of Democrats don't want Biden to run for office again. While Trump remains the dominant force within the Republican Party, many say they're open to someone new who doesn't bring the former president's combative divisiveness or the distraction of a grueling court battle. And no one claims that Biden at 80 years old or Trump 77 represents the youthful vigor or embodiment of America's bright future that many have found appealing in past presidential candidates. So today we'll be looking at both voters dreading the 2024 election with the likely current nominees, and also the GOP changing some of its big business tactics. Welcome to The State of Us. I'm your host, Justin T. Weller, joined today by the one and only, your friendly redneck liberal, and the senior resident historian here at True Chat, Mr. Lance Jackson.
Getting ready to talk some politics. I like it. I'm all pumped, ready to go. Since I'm so much younger than Biden and Trump, I totally
You're a
recognize.
spring chicken by comparison. You could bring that youthful vigor to the office.
I could. Very much needed. I like the opening there because, boy, really? We're going to elect somebody who's going to be almost 82 or almost 79 to president. I mean, I'm really glad that, cross my fingers, things will change before the election.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I sure hope that I feel like running for president when I'm 80 or 82, because I mean, both of my grandparents on my father's side lived to be upper 80s, and great. And they were pretty with it the whole time. But I don't think that either of them would have said that they thought it was a good idea for them to run for. I don't think either one of them would have said that they want a full-time occupation at 80, let alone, a job that requires something like 60 to 80 hours a week at minimum, if done lightly.
Hey, I just read an article. You know what the fastest growing age group is at work?
What's that?
People in their 80s.
Well, there it is.
I mean,
I guess there's a lot of vibrant 80-year-olds.
Well, there are, and they're like, I got tired of playing golf every day. I got tired of, volunteering at the nonprofit.
Hey,
my wife kicked me out. I can only ride my bike so many miles a week. I'm up to 200 miles a week on my bike.
What else?
What else do I do? I'm going back to work. So
yeah.
in deference to them, that was an article that I read. I think it was in the Wall Street Journal from last week.
I guess if we have
they're talking about 80-year-olds,
some 80-plus-year-olds out there. Hey, if you feel like you're up for running for president, please reach out, because I would like to meet these people. I don't doubt that there are people that can do it. Warren
Buffett's working into his 80s and runs one of the biggest wealth companies in the world. So
maybe he should run for president.
So maybe we're wrong, right? Are we casting aspersions on these, are we practicing some ageism here?
Well, I really don't think that the majority.
Or is it these two people?
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, I really don't think that I don't think the main reason that people are not excited about these two candidates is their age. Clearly, right? And we talked about this actually in the 2020 election, because one of the themes was either of these people, by the time they leave office, would be the oldest people to ever hold the office of president. Is that a big deal? Obviously not, because it was either going to be Biden or Trump. And in either case, you were going to have somebody that was, up there in years. So clearly that's not something that's going to keep somebody from becoming president. I think what the article's highlighting is that part of what's gotten us excited as a nation about different candidates in the past has been youthful, energetic candidates. And when we say youthful, remember, it's relative. When you're talking about somebody who's 80, youthful, for example, could be somebody like Lance, but realistically, it's people that have been, in their 40s or early 50s. Well, and it's wow, look at that energy,
And historically too, when you mention that, usually you don't run against a sitting president.
No.
So is Gavin Newsom waiting in the wings for Biden to, stumble figuratively. He stumbled literally, a couple weeks ago. But and even challenge. I mean, the last was it? John Anderson ran as an independent against Carter in 80.
You have to go pretty far back.
Are we going back to 68 when McCarthy and Robert Kennedy ran against Lyndon Johnson? And Johnson,
the last time that
Johnson pulled out. Johnson,
a young insurgent candidate tried.
Right.
But when young insurgent candidates have been successful, it's almost always been like, well, you go back to Obama, right? It's almost always been when their party was not the one that had held the White House previously. So they weren't running against an incumbent.
No, that's my point is so.
Yeah. Well, and the Biden thing's extra complicated because this is, he's seeking a second term, right? So
why
it's
is
not
nobody
even
saying that? Am I having an epiphany here or am I missing something? Nobody's bringing up 1968 because LBJ was thought to be the shoe-in nominee for the Democrats to run for re-election after winning the election in 64 to re-elect in 68. And Eugene McCarthy and Robert Kennedy ran against him, threw their hats in the ring. And in New Hampshire, the bellwether, right, the start of the Johnson won the primary, but only garnered like 52% of the Democratic vote. And so he went on TV and said, I'm not even going to bother to run. So, if somebody were to challenge Biden on the Democratic side, would Biden bow out? Right now there's not even a challenger, but that's the last time I can think of a challenger to the incumbent president.
Is there? I do. Why is there not? I know why.
Whereas the Republicans, you've got like 17 names right now. There are like 17. Seriously, folks, it's double digits. I don't know if it's 17.
It's like 2016 again.
Yeah, but there are people who have formally announced these they don't have their committees and looking into whether or not
people
they should
that
run.
Think they're running for president.
They actually are running, right?
Yeah.
For the Republican side. So, okay, we get that, but
that's not unusual for the side that doesn't have.
But it is very unusual for somebody to challenge an incumbent.
Yes.
And
well, that's why is there not a challenger to Biden yet? And the answer is because historically, right? And historically recent history tells us that people don't usually
you saying
challenge.
68's not recent? I remember 68.
Yeah, well.
Okay.
There's that relative.
It's 1968. We're not talking about 1868.
Okay.
We're talking about 1968.
Well, you were alive for both, right? So
I was.
Okay.
I can't help it if you're too young to remember things.
It's like, compared to Biden, you're youthful, but and then if you compare you to Levi, Levi's seems youthful. So, but then if we compare Levi to, a 2-year-old,
Levi doesn't remember 2008.
Well,
much less 1968.
I know.
Heck, the other day you didn't even know who Timothy Leary was.
That's all these people.
I'm really getting old because you guys don't even get my cultural references anymore.
Yeah, that's one of those. See, there's old people courtesy, right? Smile and laugh along.
So does Gavin Newsom?
Is that the best we got?
Governor of California. The biggest challenger to Trump is the governor of Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, but the Democrats.
I had a friend who just returned from vacation on the Gulf shores of Alabama. And political action sign, right? Campaign sign, first of the season, said, I'm voting for DeSantis, Trump without the crazy.
I think that's what DeSantis is going for. In fairness
and younger,
to that campaign,
right?
You're gonna get the policy of Trump without the age and without the same degree of drama. I think that's the angle, at least it seems like, is being taken. They haven't said that explicitly, but the article goes on, Lance, to say that.
Well, who else runs from the Democrats if it's not Gavin Newsom?
Somebody new and exciting.
You can't throw Hillary back. Yeah, but who do the Democrats have?
Well, I don't think that Hillary would count as new and exciting.
No.
Well, it would be exciting.
No,
it would be exciting, but it wouldn't be.
But who
new.
else do the Democrats? Who's the young up and comer?
Well, the problem. See, here's the problem. You want to talk about something that Biden did, right? That was keen. Is the people that could have been good options, he's either given a job to or done favors for. So he's basically wiped out. I mean, like you think of, some of the other candidates from 2020 that some people were actually genuinely excited about.
You have Amy Klobuchar, and Pete Buttigieg,
but Pete Buttigieg is the transportation secretary, so he ain't gonna. You're not gonna step up and challenge, your boss. Some of the others are probably known factors, so they don't count as exciting.
And you got Beto down in Texas.
He might be trying
again.
I mean,
he's kind of like I hate to put these two names together, but see, like Abraham Lincoln never wins an election until he runs for president.
Right. Well, maybe.
I know Lincoln was, in the Illinois Congress and, all that kind of stuff. But he lost the Senate race in 1858.
Yep.
And then became president in 1860.
It can happen, folks.
Now I'm going back to the 1860s.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to make that reference.
Back to the good old days.
Since you made the comment.
Civil War. And
that I lived in both, the 1860s and 1960s.
I collect a lot of books from the 1800s.
And when I get to 2060s, then we're going to have a show.
That'll be impressive. So the article points out, and I think this is really important, just how close it was in 2020, because we don't remember. I don't know if we recall that it was close.
You don't remember January 6th?
Well, yes, I do.
Obviously,
I don't know. Does it being close have anything to do with whether that would have taken place or not?
Oh, you don't think so? I do.
So you think if the Electoral College had been a wide margin, it wouldn't have.
January 6th would not have occurred. No,
so
I believe that.
If 2020 is any guide, and if the two ultimately top their tickets come election day, referring to Trump and Biden, it will be a razor-thin contest. Biden's margin of victory in 2020 in the states that decided the election was less than 77,000 votes across 4 states, although he won the popular vote by 7 million. So as a lesson here and a reminder,
but wasn't it the same thing in 2016 when Trump won?
Yeah.
Wasn't it less than 100,000 votes?
The difference was that he didn't.
3 states?
He lost the popular vote, but won the electoral.
But it was still a very razor thin margin.
Yes.
By which he won.
Yes. Well, it has been. And that's part of the thing is the article points out that few voters appear confident that 2024 will be about the issues that many of them care about, or that the polarization that has gripped the country will abate. It goes on to explain that when pollsters asked in 2010 whether the country had become so divided that the national government can no longer solve major issues, 45% agreed, while a larger share, some 50%, said that the nation could unify despite its partisan differences. NBC News reran that poll. What do you think the answer is today? Keep it here on The State of Us, and we'll be right back. In 2010, pollsters asked the country if it had become so divided that the national government could no longer solve major issues. 45% agreed with the statement, while 50% said that the nation could still unify despite its partisan differences. But when NBC News reran the question last year, some 70% said that polarization prevented Americans from solving problems, and only 27% said that unity was possible. In a new survey released this week by the polling firm NORC, about 90% of both Republicans and Democrats said they believed that U.S. laws should be applied equally, that the government should be accountable to the people it represents, and multiple other principles. But only about a third of these people in each party believed that members of the other party held those same views, a sign of deep distrust between the parties.
But going back to President Obama, he showed how you can fund a campaign on small dollar donations.
Right.
And like anything else, something that's successful gets copied. And that's one thing that Republicans are doing now. They're going after those small dollar donations.
Why?
Because that's where the money is.
Well, what about all these big businesses that support them, Lance? So they can't get money there anymore?
Well, they can.
That's the other part of the show, right?
That's the other part of the show. But as you're talking about this divide, the point is, if you play up the divide, then you don't need the big business PACs. You can go get the small donors and say, see, we're going to stand up against these progressive big businesses. that are trying to control your life, and we're not going to take their money. You send us your $5, $10, $20, $50 donations, and we'll fight for those American values that you hold near and dear to your heart. That's the push, right? That's what you just said. Yeah. You push the divide, and you can rake in enough money to get reelected and not sell your soul to big business.
So they're turning, I mean, in some ways they're shifting tactics here on big business, right? Of maybe we're better served with our base, the elusive base, by turning away from big business. And I think this represents a larger trend too, which is going to be interesting.
Let's attack Anheuser-Busch,
yeah,
for what they're doing. Yet we're not going after all the beers that Anheuser-Busch sells. We're going to let you drink the ones you want. But see, we're strong on our American values, conservative American values. So, instead of buying that case of Bud Light, send the $20 to us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's
I know.
They're playing the game.
Sure.
Right? But that's what you said.
That's what parties do.
That's why we can't, to your point, we don't come together. Is because they're playing up the riff, they're playing up the split, trying to drive that wedge even further so that they can get more money. And when they garner more money, they're more likely to win the majorities in the House and the Senate, which then does it matter if you get the presidency?
Well, that's the other thing.
I mean, is there a new tact going on here?
We get all excited about the presidency, but how much of a difference does it make? The biggest place it might make a difference is your ability to appoint Supreme Court justices. I mean, that's been in the news, obviously, a lot,
right?
With recent decisions over the past, year and a half now. The president doesn't make, laws. Their ability really has to do with how they can influence or lead, right, Congress. But if it's flipped, because of the polarization, it's a pretty difficult spot to be in.
Well, now we're looking at executive orders, which was the Obama way to get things done.
That was
and then Trump did it.
The back half of his first term and through his second term was mostly.
And then Trump did it. Now Biden's trying to do it, and the Supreme Court's ruling on these negatively against these executive orders.
Right. It's like, nope, can't do that.
So who's going to be the bright to figure out a new way to get things done since Congress can't come together to write a law?
And the other thing too, right, is we don't want, as a nation,
aren't you tired of the country not moving?
We shouldn't be relying on executive orders. I'm tired of the country
not moving forward. Well, I understand that, but I'm tired of people arguing just for the sake of arguing and not solving any problems.
Yep.
I mean, whether we dig up more coal or produce more oil or have more solar panels and more wind turbines, can't we just do something about the energy? I mean, we saw what the energy grid is doing in Texas. We're in a really hot summer. And all we do is argue.
Bicker.
We're not settling the problem. I mean, there are ways that I feel strongly about that we should solve it, but we just argue about it, and it just continues to get worse.
The article points out is one of the dangers for the ultimate nominees is that the sense of malice that voters feel now could translate into a lack of enthusiasm at the polls in November, when turnout could be a major factor in deciding the winner.
But whose fault is that?
Well, it's the parties that are nominating these candidates.
No, it's the voters. Because why do I say that? Because we're accepting this. We're saying you guys and gals go at each other, argue, be nasty, and the nastiest one is the one I'm going to vote for.
Yep.
So we get what we ask for. We sit here on one hand and say, well, we want to see something above board. We want honest. We want opinions. We want differences of opinions. And we want to see quality people. And then when they run, we don't vote for them.
I think
so. Then what do we end up with?
It's time that more people, right, of influence and persuasion throughout media admit what this article says, which is that it's just what you just said just not that long ago. We're tired of these options. Forget whether or not Biden or Trump or Hillary Clinton or whoever, right? Forget whether they're a good person or not. Just set that aside. We're just tired. These people have been around in the public life of America a long frickin' time. you know? And you can say, well, Trump never held public. Yeah, but how long has Trump been a public figure in the United States? A long freaking time.
Right. Well, and Biden was the vice president of Obama for 8 years.
Well, and he was in the Senate and he ran for president before that. I mean, Biden's been around as long as Trump's been around in terms of the public sphere of, you know, politics. Trump's been around in a different era. But people, I think we are tired. We are worn out by seeing the answer that the parties are coming up with is we're going to bring you, like you said, somebody that is nastier or that is safer than the other person. That's what we got. That's it. The reason a third party can't win is because the two major parties don't have any interest in letting a third party into the race, you know, but there is some hope in this election for a potential new third party bid.
Am I being overly optimistic when I say I don't think it'll be Trump Biden in a year and a half?
I hope not.
I mean, if you were betting, would you bet on that? Or would you take the other way? I'll give you the field. The field versus the field, or Trump versus Biden. Where are you leaning right now in the summer, in the year before the election? Because remember, folks, it doesn't happen this year.
Yeah, I know.
It's a year. It's November.
We got time.
It's November a year from now.
Yep, we got time.
I'll take the field, and I think, but I'm afraid I'm being overly optimistic.
Yeah, I think that if there ever was a time to take the field, you know, and say that, despite the fact that the two parties are going to bullheadedly plow forward, right, with whatever they're going to do, you know. We don't care if Americans are apathetic. We don't care if they want somebody else, because at the end of the day, if we make Trump the nominee or we make Biden the nominee, we just know that our people are going to show up to vote for him because they'll like our guy. They might not like our guy, but they're going to like the other guy less, you know? So who freaking cares? I think at some point that strategy is going to bite the Democrats and the Republicans in the butt. And if there ever was a time, I think it's now, because you don't even have to have somebody that's that exciting. You just have to have somebody that's not these people, who's offering a optimistic, positive view of the future, not of the past, you know? And that's why I think if there was ever a time statistically that there's a good opportunity for somebody to seize, now is that time. Because I think a youthful, like, think about if you brought a, you know, JFK or an Obama or somebody like that, right, in their prime when they first ran for president, you bring somebody like that into this race right now, are you going to tell me that they don't, Republican, Democrat, whatever, you know? I think you got a lot of Americans that are going to be very interested in whatever that is. You know what I mean? Just because they're not almost 80 years old and they're not people that we've known for our whole freaking life, you know, who have either been in politics or been in the public eye forever. These are known factors. I mean, one of the things they said in the article is like, I'm tired already and it hasn't even started because I don't want to watch a replay of 2020. So what solutions are there to this? We've talked about some of it, right? Keep it here on The State of Us and we'll be right back. So there's a group that's been around for a while, about as long as we've been doing this show, actually, called No Labels. And we've had some of their different leaders on the show at different times, and I think we're gonna try to invite somebody back here soon to talk about what their plan is for 2024, because they're looking at this polling, right? And their group is a nonpartisan group whose whole thing is like, they're based in DC, right? Try to get Democrats and Republicans to work together for the common good. What a crazy notion. It's not a revolutionary notion, right? It just happens to be one that not a lot of people are not a lot of lobbying groups are pushing forward. No Labels is saying, we're going to secure spots on the ballots in all these different states.
Yeah, but the Republicans and Democrats are both fighting Labels in state courts about their petitions.
The one thing the Republican Party and the Democratic Party can agree on right now is that they don't like this No Labels thing that's happening, right? And that, folks, right there, I think that tells you everything you need to know, right? About what Lance and I have been saying for like the whole time we've done this show. The parties have no interest in
a fair race.
None at all.
Sorry,
right?
not trying to put words in your mouth.
Because
that's all I think of.
They don't
fair.
even want No Labels to be in the race. Right. They don't even want to let them participate. You know, it's not.
Talk about American democracy.
We won't beat you on the merits. We're just not going to let you in.
Yeah.
Nope. You know, we have zero interest in letting you enter this race, partly because I think what No Labels has pitched is that, you know, if the two parties proceed down the path they're proceeding, and if they put these two people forward again, then we have every intention of bringing forward an alternative ticket, you know, and both parties, I imagine, hate that idea. And why would they hate that? Right. I mean, if it was no risk.
Well, because of the article we've been referencing on today's show.
The Libertarians nominate somebody every presidential election, right? You don't see the two parties getting all bent out of shape about that. Because why? Because they know there's no chance, right? But the Green Party, the Libertarians, they're going to nominate, who freaking cares? You know, they're going to get one, if they're lucky, they'll get 1% or so of the popular vote, and they're not going to win any states. So like, we don't care. But all of a sudden, there's this group that says, well, we're going to take a Republican and Democrat, put them on the same ticket, and we're going to run against these suckers. And now the parties are very interested in, well, we can't let that happen. We can't let them run.
Scary. But it's going on.
But should also tell you that apparently the parties think there's room for this to take off. Right. Because why squash it if it's not a threat? I mean, who cares? Well, I mean, you can challenge it, but at the end of the day, if you meet the requirements, we still live in a country where you have the right to put people on the ballot, and you have the right to create a new political party, and you have the right, you can do that.
Oh, then it gets fun. Let's say they take a third party, whoever it is, takes California and New York, and nobody gets the 270.
Do we have a process for that, Lance?
We do.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, but you weren't alive then. It was back. It was back when I was alive at the turn of the century.
Okay.
2 centuries ago.
Right. Two turns ago. Back when you were.
They had CBS show Ghost back when those guys were alive, you know, that took place.
Yeah. But we have had that happen before, right?
Yes, we have.
It doesn't happen very often. And the only thing that history tells us about that is that who knows what will happen if nobody gets 270. Nobody knows. Nobody really has any idea then what'll take place, especially with the Congress that we have.
The makeup of Congress. And as you pointed out every once in a while, that when the House of Representatives votes, it's 1 vote per state.
Yeah, it's not everybody, it gets, for those that don't remember, if nobody gets 270 electoral votes, right, then Congress is tasked, the House of Representatives specifically, not the Senate, the House of Representatives is tasked with electing the president, and they don't get 1 vote for 1 member, they get 1 vote for their state. So the entire delegation of each state votes with a single vote.
So where are they getting all this money?
Who's that?
Anybody to run. Well, we've known for years, right, that big corporations usually support the GOP, the Republicans.
Typically, historically.
But according to this article in the Wall Street Journal, a rift is widening between the GOP and big corporate donors. Once considered natural political allies, the Republican Party and big business are drifting apart. GOP lawmakers are weaning themselves off money from corporate political action committees. Republicans are now less dependent on corporate and industry PACs than at any time in the past 3 decades. Where are they getting their money? They're turning to smaller donations from millions of individuals who tend to be wary of big businesses' priorities, such as free trade. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean,
this new group of Republicans, and for example, right, to give you, how much I like anecdotal evidence here, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has lived through this change. In the 2016 election, he received more than 40% of his campaign reelection money from business PACs. In 2022, McCarthy became the Speaker of the House with only 3% of his campaign funds coming from corporate money, from 40% to 3% in 6 years.
Big change.
I mean, are they using the Obama method? That I mentioned earlier in the show when you brought this up. We're going after the small time donors because, according to the article, they're taking up these causes once associated with old school Democrats, advancing bills that give more power to the federal government to raise wages for blue collar workers and lower drug costs for consumers. Why are they doing this? Because within the Republican Party, this is from the article now, these stances are taking place because the Republican Party increasingly represents less educated blue-collar workers in rural areas who often tend to hold more conservative views on these liberal issues that big business is pushing.
It all goes back to, I just wrote this down, Lance, frustrated voters. You might say, well, what do you mean? Well, there are actions and reactions, right? Companies over the past 5-10 years have started to become much more active historically than they used to be on social-based issues, right?
Well, we've talked about reality. Younger workers want to work for a company
that reflects their values.
Exactly.
So there's been this push.
If you're looking for young workers, what do you have to do?
You're tailoring to their expectations. So we find that younger workers want to work for companies that favor their values. So companies start taking value-based stances, which again, historically in American business was less common. Most of the time it was, if we're involved in politics, it's quietly and it's behind the scenes. It's not public, and we don't take big public stances.
We're not going to take a public stance, right?
Yep. Well, and rarely did companies, even when they were involved in politics, it was a lot of times it was for business interest, right? It wasn't for social issues. It was, we're backing this candidate because they have this initiative that we think is positive for American business.
Well, like Donald Trump, when he was a businessman, he donated equally to Democrats and Republicans so he could have
it was good business.
A voice,
right?
No matter who got in.
Yeah.
He could go to them and ask them for a favor.
Yeah.
That's just
common practice.
That's what business did.
So what changed? Well, the demand of younger workers. Well, what combines with that is the people that are most likely to get hired by these big name companies, right? Where the values matter to them getting hired tend to be white collar, corporate, and a lot of more high tech or skilled jobs, quote unquote, skilled jobs that require some degree of higher education. Well, as the country has shifted. You also
said younger workers.
Right. They're younger naturally.
But it's like on this show, we tease each other back and forth. Our views aren't totally different, but the average 60-year-old plus versus the average millennial
are going to have different views.
They're going to have different views on solar energy, on abortion, on, all of these hot button issues. And it's like, well, I've got to get younger workers. But when I do that, the people who buy my products, I could be turning them off by taking these social stances. And the Republicans are playing that up to get money from these smaller donors.
The biggest failure of the Democratic Party, in my opinion, in the past decade is the failure to recognize the shift in frustration of non-urban traditional voters, right? Non-urban and non-suburban voters. Your rural or rural suburban voters are upset. They became upset in part because all this stuff happens with the economy. The world has changed a lot, right? We're moving toward tech. And a lot of them feel left out, left behind, or not spoken to. And Lance and I we're recording this show from one of those places where I think there's a lot of people who feel that way. People don't like to feel ignored. They hate to feel ignored. And the biggest failure of the Democratic Party, in my opinion, over the past decade is the failure to recognize that that shift happened and then to do anything to speak to those voters. The Republicans, on the other hand, we've always talked about they like to win, right? They've detected that this change is taking place and they've decided to seize upon it if you had asked 40 years ago if it was likely that the Republican Party would become the populist party of the United States, I think a lot of people probably would have said, no, it's almost the opposite. They're kind of the more elite party, and the Democrats are a bit more of the populist party. And now it's almost as if what's happening is that's shifting, right? If you don't say the right things, if you don't act the right way, you're not part of the Democratic Party. We might even kick you out, but if you don't talk right, speak right, if you're the quote unquote perceived everyman, then we're going to talk to you as the Republican Party. Now, mind you that I'm not sure that either party's actually doing a lot for their respective voters, right? I'm not contending that they're actually serving them, but they are.
But who's pretending to listen better?
But who's pretending to listen better? And the Democrats are failing miserably at pretending even to give a damn about what's happened to this group of Americans that's substantial enough to win the presidency, right? I mean, we saw that in 2016. There's enough of them coupled with enough of the people that'll always vote Republican to take the White House under the system that we have. So it's not like this ain't nobody that are upset, And no, maybe they're not upset for the, quote unquote, right reasons or justified, but they are frustrated. The economy has changed on them. And if you don't speak to them, you lose them. And especially if somebody else speaks to them. So no, Trump's never been one of those people. He has never lived that life. He's not lived the rural life. He's not lived the poor life. He's not lived the factory life. He's not lived the everyman life. But he did the thing that the Democrats managed to bungle for 2 elections in a row, which is to talk to those people and not only talk to them, but say, you're my people and I'm going to fight for you.
Whether I actually do or not.
Right, whether I do or not is
at least I'm telling you that you guys are important to me.
Somebody.
Oh, wow. Somebody, and then
somebody important is saying that we're important.
Right.
A huge part of elections is feeling heard. And I think, and that's the message for this election, is that voters right now do not feel heard by what the parties are doing. And there's the opening, right? The same thing that Trump seized on the first time round. He doesn't have quite that same advantage the second time around. I mean, you got your diehards, but for the people that are questioning whether or not that's the right choice, there's this opening for that energy to come through of, I hear that Americans are upset with the current parties and the current options, and we're going to do something different.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. Why do we have this show today, Lance?
Because True Chat, where we work, has a mission. And that mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And if you've listened to today's show, please tell your family and friends, get them to listen, tell them they can find us as a podcast on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, and everywhere podcasts are found.
State of Us releases new episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays first thing in the morning as a podcast. Those same episodes are heard on the weekends on AM and FM radio stations across the United States and parts of Canada. For the State of Us, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I'm Lance Jackson.
Special thanks to recording producer Levi LaForge and senior producer Bradley Butch. And of course, thank you, our audience, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.